We're going to talk a little bit now about licensing and certification requirements, and you can find that under CCR 2715 for more detail. So here we're going to go over the requirements that are needed for owners, for DOs or designated operators, the person that comes out once a month to service the UST site, the service technicians, and us, the regulators, the inspectors. So why is this important? Why do we need licenses and certifications? Obviously, we want to ensure that these individuals are aware of the laws, aware of the regulations, and they know what they're doing, right? We don't want people flipping sensors or doing weird stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. So let's talk first about owner requirements, okay? So we're going to break down each of these different topics into subsections here. So when we talk about owner requirements, we're talking about them submitting a signed statement to the local agency, which includes some important information. The main stuff is that they put down the facility name, the address, and who the designated operator is going to be. Any alternatives if necessary, and then sign the document. Again, this kind of ensures that they are aware and in compliance with all the applicable UST requirements. And again, it tells us who the UST operator will be for that site. So essentially, the owner is going to notify the local agency of the DO for each facility. Can multiple DOs work at multiple facilities or single facilities? Yeah, we see that all the time where, you know, you've got a paper on the back of, especially with corporations where they have contracts with other testers, and they just got lists of DOs that we go through, and we just got to verify and certify. And it's important that we don't take, you know, their word for it, but we actually go onto, you know, ICC and really check it out, because this happened recently to us where we were working with a technician, and, you know, he was telling us he was certified, and we asked for that certification. All right, let's see the ICC. And, you know, he was expired, you know, and it's like, hold on a second, you can't do the test anymore. And he thought he was current, but he wasn't. So that's a scenario that I think can happen a lot. So it's very important, even though we work with technicians day in and day out, maybe we see them continuously, it's important just to verify that information to make sure they're current. So they're not conducting and not signing off on, you know, DO reports or DO trainings or certified test results that, you know, when they're not certified. So when we talk about designated operator requirements, it boils down to two responsibilities here. The first one is to perform the monthly visual inspections for each facility and maintain a log for that. So essentially, this ensures that all alarms are addressed and properly documented. So if a system goes into alarm, we need to verify, we need to know why that, number one, why that component went into alarm and what was done to remediate that issue. Was it a simple issue as rainwater going into the sumps and causing a, you know, either a turbine shutdown or, you know, an alarm, let's say? Or was it more serious as, you know, is there a potential release of fuel for whatever reason in piping and compromise in the piping? So we need to ensure that those alarms are checked out. This also verifies the fact that, you know, if there's a cold start, if you guys are familiar with the term cold start, essentially when all the memory from the monitoring system panel is erased, so essentially all the setup is gone, so they have to go back in and reprogram how each sensor works. And when that happens, we have to go out there and verify that, you know, what they programmed is still doing what it's supposed to do. And a lot of times what ends up happening, not a lot of times, but maybe in some cases where if we're out there, we're verifying the alarm history of the tapes, we can basically see just by checking the tapes when a cold start happens. So we just go back on DO reports and see if they're doing their job right when that cold start started or happened. And we can then take it from there and verify what actions were taken, if they did pull a permit, if they called it in, or, you know, if they're just trying to play it off like they didn't know what happened. And then the second requirement that they need here is to provide on-the-job training to facility employees and then retrain them every 12 months. So within 30 days of hire, they need to get trained, and then every 12 months thereafter. So as I said earlier, as inspectors, you know, we go out and we do our inspections. A quick way to verify if the employee is trained is just ask them, you know, where is your monitoring system panel? Where is your, you know, UST binder? Where is your, you know, spill kit? And if you just get blank stares and then you look on the DO training log and says, you know, they're trained on where the spill kit is and where the beater it is, something doesn't correlate correctly. So again, we can double check to ensure that they are in fact trained. And this is what that designated operator monthly inspection checklist looks like. So this is done once a month. It doesn't matter really what day it is. Most of them do it at maybe the beginning, maybe the middle of the month, but it's just once a month. They need to provide this printout here with all the fields filled out correctly with the attached alarm history. Again, we want to ensure that that they're going out there, number one, and if there are any issues, they're addressing those issues. I had one DO that was actually photocopying alarm histories and would only change it out if there was an alarm. But then I asked him, how can I verify that if you're just, just putting copies of stuff? So I told him, you can't do that. You need to put in, print a fresh copy in. So you might see examples of that, and we do need to see the dates, the addresses of that alarm history as well, so we can verify that. One of the more common issues, again, that you might be seeing, I know it's a little small, but if you focus on 5A, there's a line there that states about listing the alarm that occurred and what was done to remediate that action. And a lot of times that's left blank. So we don't know, if there was a sensor that went into alarm, we don't know what ends up happening. There's no work orders as well. There's no follow-up as well. So again, this is a good point to highlight in terms of ensuring that the DO forms are filled out correctly. 5A is the most common thing that's left blank. So when we talk about, on-the-job training, who do we say the DOs, who do we say the employees, who do we say train the employees? The DOs, right? DOs train the employees once a year, 30 days upon hire. So what does this training include? Okay, the training includes the BMPs, the best management practices, which essentially dictates, what to do in case of a spill, what to do in case of if a spill happens. What do? You report it. We have our procedures in place. Obviously, no tampering. They should be aware of these issues. Emergency containment information or contact information, we want to make sure that that's current. How many times do we see managers change over, or change cell phone numbers or store numbers, and that needs to be updated. In case there's an emergency, we have the correct and most current information. So just ensure that we're checking on that. And then the spill overflow response procedures, again, that goes with the monitoring plan or response plan that we talked about earlier. We're ensuring that those forms are completed correctly and that they're signed and dated appropriately. And any monitoring equipment operation and alarm response, again, we want to make sure that the facility is doing everything in the correct way in terms of responding to alarms if there are any. Not just hiding them, not just Xing them out, not just hitting the red alarm button and just silencing the alarm, but actually addressing them. So just like Mr. Bob does here, he gets the job done right, correctly? So when we talk about service technician requirements, all right, now we can move on here. We're talking about the fact that they're going to be testing certain things. We can talk about monitoring system components. We can talk about secondary containment. We can talk about installation. So they do have to be certified in what they're doing, which makes sense, right? If they're installing piping, they need to be certified in that pipe that they're installing. If they're testing something, they need to be certified per that, manufacturer. So they're aware of how to test things. And they need to possess the tank tester's license or California State Licensing Board license as well. We also verify, and it's important to ensure that they have current ICC California UST Service Technician certification. We had one, well, this happened to me once where he showed me the ICC, but not from California. So does that count? No, it doesn't count. You've got to be ICC certified in California to do testing in California. And then we need to see training and certification by equipment component and manufacturer. So if you ever, when you're out there, you ask for certifications, you can see that the technicians just have a book, like a little book full of cards and certifications that they have based on what components they're certified to test. And we need to ensure that they are current on them, because there's so many. There's Vitaroot, there's Incon, there's Boudreaux, there's Red Jackets, VMIs. There's all these different components, and we just need to ensure that they are current with them. When we talk about UST installer requirements, again, very similar to testing, where they need a CSLB license and a hazardous substance removal certification. Why? Because, again, they're installing, and at the same time, they might be removing piping that once contained hazardous substances. So individuals installing UST systems and components have to meet certain requirements, or they have to work under the direct personal supervision of someone who is licensed or certified. So I'll give you a scenario here. If I have a license, can I have my helper do the testing while I'm on site? Yes, I have the license, I'm present, I'm on site, and that happens a lot. You have helpers that work with technicians, and they're the ones that kind of go in the sumps and lift the sensors, and the technician's kind of telling them what to do. That's all right, as long as someone that is licensed is on site. And again, training and certification by the manufacturer of that UST component is important to keep that in mind. And just like before, current ICC installer certification needs to be in place. And it's important to ask for it, because a lot of times, you know, you get to know individuals, you get to know technicians, contractors, and you get into a habit of maybe not asking for it, but it's important that you do periodically ask for their certification, their licenses, and not just take their word for it. When we talk about UST inspector requirements now, we're talking about inspectors being current with their ICC California UST inspection certification. And essentially, they got to be certified within 180 days from hire. So we have to maintain certification either by taking the test, right, or satisfying the equivalent criteria by the State Resource Water Control Board via continuing education, right? It's just too bad that this course does not meet that criteria. No, I'm just kidding. I just got worried there for a second. What? 8 hours? No. Yeah, that's why you guys are here, for that continuing education, right? So it does count. I'm just joking. So hey, am I licensed? Yes, I'm good. That's me. I'm current. I just took my test. I'm good to go. All right. No? I got trained. That's right. I didn't get to take my test. All right. DOs, designated operators, had to be certified by what date? I heard it over here, yeah, 2005, January 1st, very good. And then when must a new inspector be certified? Within how many days of hire? Yeah, you guys know that, the new hires know that. They know that clock is ticking. 180 days, I gotta get that done. So just be aware of that. So one of the tools that may be implemented in facilities with what we call significant violations, and we'll talk about what significant means, but we'll talk about the criteria a little bit later on, is using red tag authority and administrative enforcement orders, AEOs, right? So these are two tools that we can use. They're found under 2717 for further information. So has anyone ever done one of these? Red tag, you guys have done that? Oh, wow, interesting. Oh, yeah, it says he's got the red bag there. Thank you. Yeah, this is what it looks like here. Basically, it's a red tag, as the name implies. I've never done one, so maybe we can talk later about, you know, what that entailed or what happened there, what's the story behind that. But again, it's a tool that we can use, it's a tool that we can implement, and the way it's written out is if a local agency, upon discovering a significant violation, and significant meaning an imminent threat to human health, safety, or the environment, then we can immediately affix a red tag, and we affix this red tag at the fill pipe to essentially provide notice that deliveries are now prohibited to this UST system. And it's basically like what we see here. It's a tamper-proof bag or tamper-proof straps that we place on that fill pipe, so they can't get any deliveries. And we'll go over what the sticker says right now. But interestingly enough, can they still dispense fuel? Let's say they got the red tag. Can they still dispense fuel? Yeah, they can still dispense fuel. They just can't receive any fuel. So that's interesting. So even though they have a red tag and they're in significant violation, they can still dispense fuel. So this is what that tag looks like, a kind of a close-up of it, and you can see what the fine is in terms of removing or tampering or defacing the red tag, what that looks like. And then we're going to define certain things. Like I said earlier, significant violations, we're talking about a failure to comply with the requirements set forth in 6.7 that can be part of any of the following. Again, causing or threatening a release of petroleum from a UST system, or impairs the ability of a UST to detect liquid or contain liquid release, or a chronic violator or recalcitrant violator. In the case where you guys did the red tag, do you have the example? What was the example there?
It was foreclosure.
Okay, so a UST system that was in foreclosure, way behind on all their testing, and the local agency had the authority to address the red tag, which is justified. Recalcitrant, there you go, recalcitrant violators, chronic violators, there you go. So perfect example there of when and how one could be used. So when we talk about, with the definition, if we go back just a few, when we talked about significant violation, there was also another key word there that was imminent, and that's further defined as well. Imminent threat, to human health or safety of the environment is basically a condition that creates a substantial probability of harm, which makes it reasonably necessary to take immediate action. So in the case of, let's say, an unauthorized release, or if there's a recalcitrant violator that hasn't paid the permits or done their testing, how do we know those components are tight, or that the integrity has not been compromised if they haven't been doing their periodic testing? In those cases, the red tag and AEOs are available for use. Okay, so a significant violation that does not pose an imminent threat, what does that entail? Essentially, we call this the yellow tag, right? Well, that's a little joke. It's not really a yellow tag. Basically, what we do is we issue a notice of significant violation, and they need to correct that violation within 7 days. Okay, so they have 7 days to correct that violation, and if they do not return to compliance or RTC, then at that point we can use a red tag. And interestingly enough, upon them receiving the notice of upon us receiving the notice of RTC, we have to confirm that within 5 days. So we have to go out to the site and basically confirm that within 5 days, and then remove that red tag if in fact they did RTC, return to compliance. So again, red tag authority, it basically authorizes the local agency to issue those AEOs that it's going to require the violations to be corrected, and we can also impose an administrative penalty as well. And it's going to delete any requirements for an upgrade certificate of compliance, and substitutes the red tag authority. So one can use either or depending on the local jurisdiction and preference. I think that'll do it for me. Now let's talk a little bit about alternative fuels.
Okay, like Steve said, we're going to move on to alternative fuels, which is a bit of a hot topic and, the future pretty much here in California and everywhere else. So we're just going to go over a few of the more common ones briefly. Okay, so just a bit of a background. Senate Bill 989 ordered MTBE, which is a fuel additive, to be phased out of gasoline in California by January 2004. Okay, so at this point, you started to see the emergence of alternative fuels to replace the MTBE to help reduce the exhaust emissions. Okay, and some of the most common ones that we have been working with are biodiesel and ethanol. So we're going to go into those a little bit more detail. So biodiesel, are you all familiar with this product, and are you starting to see it come in your tanks? Yes. Okay, so we're looking at a vegetable oil or an animal fat-based diesel fuel. And what they're basically doing is chemically reacting the fats with an alcohol. So you often have blends I'm sure you're familiar with the term B20, B100, B5. You're often having a blend with a conventional hydrocarbon-based diesel. So like I said, the most common I'd say would be the B20. So you're looking at 20% of the biodiesel and then 80% of the more traditional petrochemical diesel. Okay, so ethanol, that's even more up and coming. We've been seeing that more recently, and it's an alcohol that's most often used as a biofuel additive for gasoline. Okay, and then bioethanol, it's a renewable source. So it's going to be processed from agricultural feedstock such as corn, potato, and sugarcane. Okay, so like I said, it's becoming more common. E85 we see quite a bit. It's becoming more prevalent now, and that's also going to be a percentage. So you're looking at the 85% ethanol with 15% gasoline is going to be the mixture. Okay, so requirements. If this is something you'd like to add to your lineup of fuel, we're going to need a written affirmative statement of compatibility. So that's going to your local CUPA. Okay, it's going to give you details on the specific hazard that's going to be stored. And the important thing is to get these documents from the manufacturers, because right now they're the ones telling us that this is something that can be used in a UST tank system without any detrimental effects. And in a similar fashion, the release detection system, such as the monitoring system, the sensors, the actual pieces of physical equipment, they also need to have that affirmative statement by the manufacturer. Because as much as we want to use this stuff from air emission standpoint, it still needs to be compatible with its storage container. We've got a volunteer, so don't worry. Don't worry, but we'd love for you all to participate with some clues, but we have someone already for the hot seat, unless Marty changed his mind.
Okay, UST owner, operator has to perform this every year.
Leak detection?
Yes.
Dusto?
He has to do it. He has to do it every year, annually with your inspector.
A technician.
He has to hire a technician, usually.
Annual certification? Yes. Testing?
Yes. Okay, this is done every 3 years. It was a result of SB 99.
Hydrostatic secondary testing?
Yes.
Good.
This is an alternative fuel. It's not biodiesel.
E85?
What another name for E85 is?
Biodiesel?
What's E in E85?
Ethanol?
Okay.
Not loud enough.
The owner usually, you have to be ICC certified to be this. You get tested every year.
Owner, Dusto?
Yes. Well, what is Dusto? What is?
Designated operator?
Yes. It's not blue,
It's red.
but it's
Yellow.
It's significant. It's a significant
Red
violation.
tag.
Yeah.
It's an alternative fuel other than ethanol.
Alternative fuel.
It's another alternative fuel. We had ethanol. You said ethanol earlier. What's another one? I said it earlier.
Biodiesel.
All right. Okay, this is the most advanced integrity test.
ELD.
Very good. Okay.
You're running out of time. What the?
Okay. Person that a contractor has to have this when he for new construction of a tank.
ICC, UST installation,
Yes.
certification.
Yeah.
This is the
This is a big,
This is the regulatory agency other than under the feds, but not the local, that regulates underground storage tanks.
Not the local, state.
So you have federal?
State water resource control.
Yes.
Yep.
Last one. Here we go. Oh, what was that? Is there a question?
That's that. It was a joke.
Oh, wait, no. No, wait. Give him a clue.
He's a superhero that goes fast.
Underdog.
I think it's this.
I think it's that, yeah.
Thank you, Marty, very, very much. Big hand for Marty.
Okay, something else I want to mention, on the State Water Board website, there's quite a few local guidance letters that give you a lot of detailed information and a little bit of help with figuring out the different laws and regulations. We got this set of questions from Orange County Health. They put this together a few years back, and we've used it for some of our internal training, and we used it a little bit last year with some of the newer beginning inspectors who wanted some practice. So just a few notes before we start. Recently, the test contents changed slightly, and this is a little bit dated, but it's still going to give you an idea of the types of questions, and a lot of the information is obviously going to be the same because it's the same regulation, but there might be a slightly different percentage of what types of questions address what types of sections of the law and reg. So just some helpful hints. We've all taken it up here, and I think the most difficult thing to realize and to prevent yourself is to memorize where everything is exactly. I think the easy part is to realize what section is this? You know, what article is this? Know that there's a whole article in Title 23 that talks about existing tanks, and there's a whole article that talks about new tanks. So you can kind of have an idea of like Article 3, it talks about new tanks. So if it's construction and all that, you know where to look. So rather than memorizing dates, you want to memorize locations that would give you this type of information. Okay? So you're looking at upgrades is where you might find information on the dates regarding those December 22nd, 1998 upgrades. And then read the question carefully. You don't want to misread it or interpret it improperly and make a mistake just based on that. And then, they're not overly difficult. They want you to understand what's going on with the laws and regs. They're not trying to trick you, so don't read too much into it. And, if you just put a little bit of time and effort, it's not going to be a problem for you guys. Yeah, I'm just jumping to one more thing because I wanted to skip something. I'll just skip it as we go. So this was what was determined a few years back about the breakdown, the percentage breakdown. So the content, 7% would be UST inspector qualifications, whereas about 10% UST system and design. Inspections and administrative procedures is a pretty high percentage, 28%. Testing and UDC or UST system evaluation is going to be high. Health and safety, not quite so high. And then, of course, your installation, closure, repairs, upgrades, and modifications. And then education and enforcement. So that's a breakdown from several years back, and I think it's changed slightly just in the last year, just to be aware of that. And I don't know the exact breakdowns. There's a committee that works on this, and not all of us are privy to that information. Okay, so in terms of the multiple choice test questions, they're all going to be multiple choice, just so you guys know. And it has two components. So you're looking at either a statement or a question. Okay, and then they're also going to give you some choices that might be a bit of a distraction. So it's nice to reread the question and make sure that you're understanding exactly what they're asking. And some answers might sound good, a couple answers might sound good, but you want to try and choose the best answer for that question. Okay, and just in case you guys are scribbling feverishly, all of this will be part of the PowerPoint I sent to you, so it'll all be here. Okay, some of the stuff goes without saying, general tips. Read the directions, read the entire question. And don't assume that the question is going to turn out how you think it's going to turn out, because sometimes it's easy to do that. You think they're looking for a particular answer, so you read into that. And then the easy thing with any multiple choices, there's going to be one or two answers that you know for a fact right off the bat that are not the correct answer. So you can go ahead and eliminate those so you're dealing with only a couple answers. Okay, test terms that you often see in this exam. The word accept, so that's going to change the direction of the question. Think of it that way. Always and never is going to mean 100% of the time to be true, whether it be a positive or a negative. And then all of the above. So if two of the answers are right, choose this one. But if one of them is wrong, that's not going to be the correct answer. You're looking for 100% there too. Okay. I'm going to move forward just so we can get to the actual interactive part since you guys are here, but this will be in the PowerPoint. Okay, are you aware that there's more than just the regulation and law that's going to be on this exam? Yes, okay, there's going to be some confined space, and it's been a while since I took it, but there's one or two other documents, I think, that are going to address it. So it sounds like this might have, I haven't looked at this for a year or two, but it looks like it's going to have some of that other information. So do you guys want to just shout out answers? How do you want to handle this? Oh, okay, shouting now. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Steve. We're just going to take turns just because it's been a long day, so we're going to continue to take turns so we don't burn out. Okay. So D, so all those answers had to be correct, so good job.
All right. So all the following are not exempt from UST regulations except. So there's one of those rules that Ceci was talking about earlier. Which one would be? You guys see B? C, D? It's A, right? Heating oil tanks? Right? That's like kind of a...
A.
It's A. Heating oil tanks, right?
So if you remember, that was one of the ones that was exempt.
Waste oil tanks, motor vehicle fuel, and aviation fuel, those are not exempt. The only one that is exempt is heating oil.
So that was the Title 23 list of exemptions, remember? That's the one that was exempt by use.
Yeah, that's one of those things that Ceci was saying you have to be aware of if they say accept, because it yeah.
Yeah, so read the questions carefully. And like I said, sometimes you think it's going in a certain direction, and sometimes there's an answer that looks good for where you thought the question was going, so it becomes further complicated. But if you just, half of it is read the question and trying to figure out exactly what they're asking. So.
All right, so here's another one. The following is an approved quantitative method of non-visual monitoring for existing UST systems. I heard a C. C sounds good to me. Yeah, SIR, right? And then you just want to be sure that, just like Ceci said earlier, you want to be aware of where to find stuff, not so much memorize. Because you do have the copy of the book with you when you take a test. So it's more important that you know where to find stuff. So here's another one. In order to meet the requirements for fail-safe, the monitoring system must shut down the turbine pump during which of the following? Is it a power outage, monitoring system fails, monitoring system disconnect, or all of the above? D, very good. Yeah, we want to ensure that, if there's a fail-safe, if there's a power outage, if there's a monitoring system fail or disconnect, that it does shut down. If a hazardous substance is stored in a basement, which of the following conditions will exempt the container from UST regulations? So which one would be exempt? D, right? One of the exemptions we talked about earlier says he had the picture of that 55-gallon drum. Way back when, like at 8:30 in the morning. That seems like a long time ago. Is it Thursday today? No? When an ATG is utilized for single-wall tank leak detection, it shall generate a post-test hard copy report of the following information, except, there's another one of those except questions, except for what? Liquid, volume, fluid depth, outside air temperature, time and date of test. All right, some B's and C's. Some C's. Outside air temperature, right? It's one of those things that are not monitored. Liquid volume, fuel depth, time and date, but outside temperature doesn't fall into that. The following are new underground storage tanks, except, are they those installed prior to 84, after 87, farm tanks, or tanks for emergency generators? A? Existing. Good job. Yes, very good. There's plenty of candy left, so if you guys want some, we can throw some out. Or you can come pick it up.
So don't forget when you see that except word, I mean, all of them are going to be true except for one, so think of it that way. And B through D, we're all true. Sue? I know, she loves taking pictures, and we're gonna miss that. So the idea is all of those things are true except for that one thing. So, think of it that way.
Oh, I'm taking my picture. Hold on. All right. Effective July 1st, 1991, what information must be located on the exterior surface of a new UST? Is it the engineering standard, capacity, year manufactured, location of manufacture? I remember this question when I took it, so it probably still works. Engineering standard, diameter, intended storage diameter, year manufactured, diameter, capacity, year manufactured, manufacturer, or D? D? C? What? It's C, right? Diameter, capacity, year manufactured, and the manufacturer. Pretty simple, just the basics. A monitoring program must be approved by the local agency, be specified in the UST operating permit, include the frequency of performing the monitoring, or all of the above. D? You guys saying D? All of the above? You guys are right. Very good. Approved, specified, and frequency. If two successive SIR reports are inconclusive, a tank integrity test must be accomplished within how many days of receipt? 10, 15, 30, or 7? C, 30? 30 sounds not right. It's B. It's 15 days. 15 days. So which of the following is a requirement for spill containers? Capacity of 19 gallons, protected from galvanic corrosion if made of metal, has a valve which allows drainage into the sumps, or provides positive shutoff when the tank is filled to no more than 95% capacity. B? Yes, B? Yes, very good. Excellent. Good students. Yeah. If an unauthorized extra candy. If an unauthorized release meets reporting requirements, the report must be filed with which agency? Is it EPA, the local agency, the State Water Resource Control Board, or the local agency and State Water? D? You guys said D? D? B. Sorry, my ear's off. All that interference from earlier. It's B. Yes, you guys are right, B. It's the local agency, right? How often must secondary containment testing be conducted? Is it every year, 2 years, 3 years, or 10 years, and then every 5 years thereafter? C, right? Every 3 years, every 36 months. Very good.
But just, you notice they're trying to, not that they're trying to trick you, but they're actually providing alternative time schedules that do apply, but they apply to something else. You know what I mean? So that within 10 years of installation, then every 5 years thereafter, that's for interior tank lining. So just be careful with that type of thing where it's a legitimate time frame, but it applies to something else. Same as the other question is, it's almost like they're trying to confuse you with the spill buckets versus overfill. You know, they threw in that last option, the shut off with the 95%.
Shut off at 95%.
So, you know, just stay on track and really figure out what they're asking.
Yeah, like every year, what's done every year? The annual certification, right? Every 2 years? Monitoring certification, yeah. Every 2 years? Licensing, right? Renew the license every 2 years. And then 3 years, we already talked about secondary containment. Every 2 years is certification? Licensing. Which of the following is not an existing tank? Installed prior to 84, farm tanks installed before January 87, tanks described in Title 23 under existing underground storage tanks, or none of the above? D? B? D. You guys said D, right? D? Yes, that's what I heard. D. None of the above, right? None of these are applicable. A portion of the UST shall be exempt from visual monitoring if the owner demonstrates which of the following? Is it not accessible for direct viewing? Is it inconvenient to monitor? The groundwater is deeper than 50 feet, or it would require PPE, personal protective equipment, you know, hard hat, steel toe boots, hearing protection? C? B? How about A, right? It's not accessible for direct viewing. It's something that Ceci touched upon earlier, if you can see it from all sides.
Then they go to the qualitative monitor, since they can't direct view. Put in a well.
That's when we rely on the monitoring system, on the sensors, all that, because you cannot visually monitor that component.
I don't know if this question is right.
No?
Yeah, this might not be. Because A is telling you it's not accessible for direct viewing, but that's something that's required to be exempt, so we'll just move on.
Erase that from your memory.
So if you do have an exempt take situation, do you need to have visual physical monitoring? Yes, no, that's what gives you the exemption. So yes, you have to have that as one of the criteria to maintain that exemption.
Okay. How long after conducting ELD testing must the test report be submitted to the local agency? B, 30 days, right? Or C, 60 days?
So why does everything else have to be notified within 30 days about this?
I know you
It's
think, right?
did I
30 days is
say?
the magic number.
Did I give that information?
I think you did. 60 days, yeah. Yeah. But everything else is like 30 days, yeah. It's just to mess us up on the exam, just to confuse us.
I think I only gave the notification 48 hours.
So which of the following can perform an ELD? Licensed I'm hungry. Licensed tank tester? Licensed state That's a tongue twister there. That's a hard one. A, B, or C, or D? Who can perform an ELD? Or ELD testing? ELD, professional engineer? Yes? ICC certified service tech? A, licensed tank tester. Hey, I said it. Licensed tank tester. All of the following are required for SIR except monthly data reporting, tank integrity testing every 2 years, annual SIR results, none of the above. Except D? No?
So what's not required for SIR?
Monthly data, do they need that? Is that required?
Yeah, one of these is not a requirement of SIR.
Yeah, there's 3 that are correct, possibly correct.
Yeah, see, remember when I was talking about SAR, I had the calendar up as a visual, so that's monthly. Point 2, so just keeping those key things in your mind. But you're not required to submit to the local agency, because you're sending it to the vendor, and they're the ones with the software who are doing the, whatever they do with the software. Oh, yes.
Just a comment. Just keep in mind that, you know, when you ask these questions, you're gonna have the reference with you. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to figure it out right now. I mean, but when you do the test, you're gonna have the reference with you, so at least you know where to go if you're not sure of your options. So just keep that in mind. I know you're put on the spot right now, but keep in mind that you're gonna have the reference man with you, and you're gonna have access to research.
Like I said, the answer was D, right? I'll be honest, I've never had to deal with an SIR system, so I didn't realize that. So I learned something new today, too. Let me take over your board.
I'll keep talking. How long after detecting an unauthorized release does the owner-operator have to submit a full written report to the local agency? Yeah, I think I talked about that for a little while, right? Yeah, so I know this one. See, yeah, 5 days. Local agency shall approve which of the following repairs or upgrades? Could it be those that include nozzles and hoses, those that can demonstrate that the UST system is structurally sound and the method of repair will prevent unauthorized release due to failure or corrosion, replacing the spill bucket, or all of the above? B, D, A, B? Just shouting out letters, see which one hits? It's B. Yeah, whoever said B, right?
Is your responsibility end at the base of the dispenser?
Yeah. At the shear valve, that's where our shear valve.
The shear valve.
Yeah, shear valve and under is our jurisdiction, and everything above that is going to be APCD or other agencies. When must tank's line to meet the 98 upgrade requirements be inspected by a coating expert or special inspector? Is it before being returned to service, within 5 years of lining the tank, after every other tank filling, or all of the above? A? You guys sound confident? Very good. Yes, before being returned back to service. If an unauthorized release meets reporting requirements, a verbal notification must be made within how many hours, followed by a written notification within how many days? 48, I heard 48.5? 24.5?
A.
24.5, right? A? 24.5. The local agency shall not reissue a permit to a facility that is non-compliant unless a follow-up inspection is conducted to verify that all required corrections have been implemented, the violations are minor, the violation is caused by the operator, not the owner promises to fix the violation tomorrow. That can happen. I promise I'll fix it tomorrow. Did you guys say A? Yes, you guys are right on. Which of the following is not a significant violation? Is it a violation that causes a liquid release of petroleum from a UST system? Is it a violation that threatens to cause a liquid release of petroleum from a UST system? Is it a violation that impairs the ability of a UST system to detect a liquid leak? Is it a violation caused by failure of the owner or operator to provide financial responsibility? D, right? B? D? By definition? So, sounds right. Which of the following is not a significant violation? D, right? Not a significant violation. So a significant violation is one that is released from the UST system and can cause or threaten to cause threatens to cause a liquid release from a petroleum from a UST system. One that is not a significant violation, it's like if they don't have their CFR letter on hand or on site. Not, yeah. So those are those keywords that you guys have to really, when you guys are doing your exam, just really focus on the excepts, nots, nevers, all of the following but, because you have the right idea, it's just, like Ceci was saying, it's just the wrong answer to the question. How long does an owner have to fix a significant violation that does not pose an imminent threat to human health and safety or the environment before being issued a red tag? 24 hours, 48 hours, 7 days, 30 days. I heard 24 hours, 7 days. We go out within that time frame to ensure. Which one contains the requirements for installing, repairing, and monitoring USTs? Is it 6.7, fire code, A, B, C, D? That doesn't sound real. CCR? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just meant to throw you off like that one, the one possible question answer that's not right. Is it CCR 16 Title 22 or 29 CFR Chapter 6? A, right? 6.7. Title 23. That's what we're dealing with, not Title 22. No? No? You want to talk? What condition must be met in order for an owner-operator to meet the exemption for a piping at a marine? So now we're talking about marine piping. Is it conducting an annual line test, conduct a daily visual inspection of the piping, and maintain a log? B. Very good. Which of the following means the displacement of the atmosphere in a permitted space by a non-combustible gas to such an extent that the resulting atmosphere is non-combustible? Inerting, right? Inert gas. Inert gas. When they're doing, just as a side note, when they're doing like pressure testing on piping, right, for like secondary containment testing, pressure testing, you want to make sure that they're using inert gas and not like oxygen, right? Because oxygen, if I understand correctly, is pretty flammable, right? And that's happened where we had one of our inspectors go out on a site and he asked the technician, what kind of gas are you using? And they're like, oxygen. And he just walked off and he told them, good luck, exactly. So you just want to be aware of that. It has to be inert. So if you're going out there and inspecting, just make sure that they're using inert gas and not oxygen. What corrosion protection options are not available for a tank that was installed prior to December 22nd, 1988? Is it cathodically protected non-coated steel tanks or piping? A combination of cathodically protected steel and internal lining of tanks? Made of non-corrodable material or latex coated? Are not available for tanks that were installed prior to 88, December 22nd. C? How about D? Latex coated. I think that's probably pretty sound. You know, you wouldn't want to put latex in the tank because it would eat it up, right? The fuel would eat up latex pretty quickly. Which method has not been identified by the EPA as meeting federal leak detection requirements? Secondary containment with interstitial monitoring, automatic tank gauging systems, groundwater monitoring, or none of the above? Which one has not been identified by the EPA? A, C, D. Somebody said D, yes. None of the above. Not. A monitoring system certification includes all of the following except monitoring system certification. So what they're asking is What does not belong? D, very good, right? So we don't need them to post the monitoring system in a visible location. They have to make it available, but not visible upon request. Which of the following is not a valid overfill prevention method? Is it the spill bucket, ATG with AV alarm, ball float valve, or flapper valve? A, right? Yeah, it's not overfill. Spill bucket. What is the purpose of interstitial monitoring? Is it to detect leaks in the UDCs? Is it to detect the presence of fluid between the primary and secondary containment? To monitor tank volume, or to regulate fuel flow to the dispenser? B. B. Yes, B. We want to detect the presence of fluid between the primary and secondary containment, the interstitial space. If a release has occurred from a single-walled tank, may the tank be lined? No, not if a release occurred. Yes, if it has been lined before. Yes, if the tank owner can demonstrate it will provide continued containment. Yes, if the tank is less than 10,000 gallons. It's going to be C. If they can demonstrate it can provide continued containment, they can.
Yeah, it's just a side note. It's just something to be aware of. If they have used tank lining as a repair method, then it can't be used again. So, I mean, as we go through the questions, we're giving some side notes that will hopefully be helpful, not just running through the exact questions. So
does that mean it has to be removed or just make that as
no, it just can't be repaired with the lining method.
Yeah, can't be relined.
Yeah, if you remember that slide Zoraida talked about, you want to assess the damage, the cause, if the whole integrity of the tank has been affected, if it's just a small isolated spot. So it becomes something you want to investigate to determine, but to specifically use that repair method is not approved. So.
A tank may be repaired in the following manner: using a 12 by 12 inch fiberglass cloth centered on the repair, using tank manufacturer approved epoxy or resin, with self-taping bolts, all of the above. D, very good. They can use all those. Which of the following is not a confined space? A space not designed for continuous employee occupancy, area with limited access, area with limited ventilation, or really deep turbine sumps? B? Is it C? D? Right, it's going to be C. It's going to be an area with limited ventilation. Because again, we're now entering an oxygen-deprived, area or confined space, and there's not enough oxygen in that area, so limited ventilation. And you guys will get, when you guys get your, when you guys take your test, you'll get the handouts on not only Title 23 and the in Chapter 6.7, but also you're going to get a section on confined spaces. And a few questions pop up on that, including, the definition of one and what percentage of oxygen needs to be present within that confined space.
No, you're not allowed to bring your own.
No, yeah.
It'll be all the same one. I mean, you'll know ahead of time which ones, but you're not allowed to bring, the assumption, I suppose, is notes and all that. So it'll be a clean copy. Yeah.
Yeah, they provide you with their own copy, but you can't take in anything in there, like not even like your keys or your cell phone. Like, you got to put them in a little locker and lock it up, and at the end, you can collect your stuff.
Yeah, definitely no smartphones.
Yeah, no smartphones, nothing like that. So just reiterating what Cecilia said earlier is learn where the sections are, because you will have the information on hand, so you don't have to memorize, everything. You just have to memorize or know more than anything where the sections in the law you can find things at. Oh, and that was a question.
We knew that.
Oh, you guys knew that one already? There you go, right, on the fill tube, right? There you go, you guys know. What must pressurized piping systems have installed by November 9th, 2004? Double wall spill buckets, UDCs, or hydrostatically lined UDCs, line leak detectors, or ATGs? C, right, line leak detectors. All sites by now should have them. If not, that might be a problem.
Is that a red tag?
That might be a red tag, yeah. That the local agency inspectors shall renew the ICC certification by A, every 36 months via correspondence, or there's no renewal required. A, right, passing the exam or equivalent approved criteria. Like this class, right? It works out. A tank system under temporary closure must be inspected at what interval? Monthly, 3 months, 6 months, annually? Good, every 3 months. Why is it inspected every 3 months? Just to ensure that the monitoring components are still, that there's someone going out there and ensuring that the caps are still locked, the vent lines are still open. What has happened, I think, in the past, the reason for that is people would be dropping, because it's like a closed site, people would drop like motor oil or contents into certain areas, the fill ports, if they're not locked, or this kind of ensures that someone's out there, they're kind of monitoring the tanks. UST systems include what components? Is it tank only, piping only, tank with the associated piping and ancillary equipment, tank, piping, dispenser units, nozzles? C, right? That's what yeah, tank, piping, equipment. The exterior surface of an underground tank must bear a marking or label which shows the following information, except: is it the width of the interstitial space, the design pressure in PSIG, the usable capacity in gallons, or identity of the manufacturer? Very good. A, the width of the interstitial space. Again, except, not. An unauthorized release, which does not escape secondary containment, requires only recordation. I like that word. That's a weird word. Recordation. On operators' monitoring reports provided it was cleaned up in 8 hours, it did not increase the fire hazard, it did not cause deterioration of the secondary containment, or all of the above. Yeah, D, you guys are right. Right on. They're excited over there. Secondary containment systems shall contain what amount of a tank if only one tank is located in containment? 50, 100, 150, or 200? Is it B? Very good, 100%, right? Temporary closure is appropriate for which of the following? The tank system is empty and it will be removed from service indefinitely. The tank system is unable to meet compliance requirements and will be removed. The tank system has ceased to store hazardous substances but will be reused within the next 12 consecutive months. Or the tank system has been red tagged. C, right? If within 12 months they will reopen, that might be something they can get out of temporary closure with. Sometimes that might happen with change of owners. If it's going through escrow and it's going from one company or corporation to another, they might wait a certain amount of time for everything to legalize, and the new owners take responsibility for the tanks. So they might go into temporary closure, like for 2 months. So they got to pump out all the contents of the tanks and go through the entire procedure. But that's what they need to do. Single wall tanks. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Question?
Yes. If the tank site is, let's say, in escrow or just sitting there for 2 years, the tank can only be placed under temporary closure for 12 months. And in certain cases, an extension can be granted for an extended 12 months, so that's 24 months. But then after that, they're going to have to pull the tanks. I had a site like that where it was like a 9-tank site, single-wall tank, single-wall piping, and they went under temporary closure, and they had thought they were going to go into escrow and sell it to somebody else, but they couldn't find someone to buy it. And after another year extension, we had to have them pull the tanks. So the tanks were removed, all 9 of them, including the piping as well, after the 2 years. No, it was a private corporation, so they had, I guess, the funds to do it. Oh, that was a question. Single-wall tanks contain the following substances, which must be upgraded to double wall with the exception of solvent, tanks, waste oil, motor, vehicle fuel, or tanks containing liquids with a pH of more than 9. So they need to be upgraded with the exception of C, right? That's the exception, is the motor vehicle fuel tanks. Because we still have single-wall tanks, right? Yeah. Which of the following is exempt from secondary containment testing? Monitored turbine sumps, UDCs, secondary piping, or hydrostatically monitored annulars? So it's continuously being monitored. This component has to be D? You guys are right, D. When you guys look at the secondary containment test reports, when they're filled out, you're going to see if they're hydrostatically monitored annulars, they're going to mark as not tested. And that just means they're exempt from testing, even though the rest of the components need to be tested. You might see that in some systems that have wet annulars, which are continuously monitored, so they fall under that, the continuously monitored component. So how long does the local agency have to notify the tank owner that a red tag has been issued? 12, 24, 48, or 5 days? Right, 24 hours. They've got 24 hours to notify them. They're usually not happy when you tell them that, right? How long must cathodic protection maintenance records be maintained? 1, 6.5 years. Very good, yeah. That's just an odd number, right? 6.5 years, so go figure. Yeah, 6.5 years. According to CCR Title 23 UST regulations, a person who performs a monitoring system certification must possess all of the following with the exception of, tank tester or contractor's license, a 40-hour OSHA HAZWOPER certificate, an equipment manufacturer certification, an ICC certification as a California UST service technician. B, right? I don't think we talked about HAZWOPER and OSHA. That'd take another 40 hours, right? Not today. So yeah, B.
An automatic shut-off device must stop the flow into the tank when the tank is 90% full, the delivery truck is 95% empty, the tank is filled to no more than 95% of its capacity, or when the fuel level is 48 inches from the bottom of the tank. Yes, C. The designated operator must train the employees about all of the following except best management practices, monitoring plan, permit conditions, leak response plan. Correct. Secondary containment is not required on suction piping, which meets all of the following except check valve located directly below the suction pump, operating under less than atmospheric pressure, piping is sloped to drain back to a monitored sump, or the check valve located at the tank bottom. Guess. D. The check valve is located at the tank of the bottom. At the bottom of the tank. Which of the following is required to be reported to the local agency? a release of fuel to secondary containment which was able to be cleaned in 8 hours or less, a release of fuel to the environment, or the presence of water in annular space, or presence of fuel in spill bucket. Now it's reported, okay? Which one? Yeah. A release to the environment. What percentage of tank volume must the monitor alarm add if the in-tank probe is used for overfill prevention? 85, 90, 95, or 100? 90%, that would be the ATG. When an ATG system is used to monitor a tank, a 0.2 gallon per hour leak test must be performed. How frequently? Once daily, once monthly, once yearly, or according to manufacturer specifications? Let's see, B, once a month. Any person who intentionally disables or tampers with a leak detection system in a manner to prevent the system from detecting a leak is subject to a minimum fine of 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. Let's see, 5,000. When is it 500? Is it ever 500? Okay. A permit required confined space has the following characteristics: except contains or has the potential to contain a hazardous atmosphere, oxygen deficient atmosphere, has potential for engulfing an entrant, or has internal configuration such that an entrant would be trapped by inwardly converging walls. Except. B, oxygen deficient atmosphere. Which of the following is considered an underground storage tank? A septic tank, a petroleum storage tank, a farm tank, a heating oil tank? A petroleum storage tank. For double-walled tanks with a monitoring program consisting of interstitial mechanical or electronic leak detection, the continuous monitoring system shall be attached to which one of those? Audible and visual, only audible, or a silent alarm? Hey. Silent and blind. Pressurized piping with secondary containment that is subject to an annual pressure test must be tested with a method capable of detecting this amount of gallons per hour release: 0.005, 0.01, 0.05, 0.1. D, 0.1. Continuous monitoring methods for new UST systems must be connected to a visual alarm, an alarm system approved by the local agency, an audible alarm system, all of the above. All of the above. Automatic line leak detectors installed on underground piping with secondary containment shall be capable of detecting a leak of 3 gallons per hour at 10 psi. Does that apply for mechanical and electronic? Does it matter? It's the same amount. Impressed curing cathodic protection systems shall be inspected no less than every to ensure that they are in proper working order. 60 days, you were right. Which of the following is exempt from secondary containment testing? That's a repeated question. Didn't we just see it? What's the answer? D, hydrostatically monitored annular space. Existing USTs using an ATG as a sole means of quantitative release detection, the ATG must be capable of detecting a release of 0.2, 0.2. A written statement, indications, statistical inventory reconciliation results must be submitted to who every, how long? A, local agency. So it should read, a written statement, indication, statistical inventory, reconciliation results must be submitted to the local agency every 12 months. The following are approved methods of release detection for single-wall tanks except, so which one is not an approved method? The interstitial monitoring. Enhanced leak detection results must be submitted to who within how many days? D. Whose topic was that? The following initial conditions shall be reported to the local agency, except water in the spill bucket, sudden loss of product pressure, erratic behavior of dispensing equipment, unexplained presence of water in the tank. A. Tanks and piping which have been repaired shall be tested for tightness within this many days following completion of the repair. 30 days. Which of the following product piping requires cathodic protection? Single-wall steel tanks, single-wall fiberglass tank, thermoplastic flex piping, double-wall fiberglass. Single-wall steel. All existing USTs shall be retrofitted with UDCs by 2003. What? Yeah, all existing USTs, they have to be retrofitted with UDCs by December 31st, 03. A tank system under temporary closure must be inspected at what? Hey, those every 3 months. You see, this is like a review of the review. Which of the following underground storage tank openings need to be sealed during a temporary closure? The fill and the vent locations, fill and access, access and vent, vent only. B, fill and access location.
So to answer your question, you're asking why you do the inspections every 3 months? It's to make sure this type of criteria is still being met.
The designated operator shall renew their ICC certification every 2 years, same as we do. But they do take the test. Monthly monitoring records must be kept on file for, it depends what, oh, this is for the monthly monitoring records, never mind. It doesn't say for corrosion only. 3 years.
Monthly monitoring records.
USD system includes the following components: just the tank, just the piping, tank and piping and ancillary equipment, or tank, piping, dispensing units, and nozzles. So how are we feeling now?
So I think we're going to go ahead and stop. We're about due for time, and we're starting to repeat questions, I think.
Yeah.
But I must say, you guys are hitting these questions awesome. So seems like you picked up something today, so I'm glad for that.
And this is the way that you're going to actually read some of the questions during your exam. They're going to be confusing and a lot of negative questions, like which one is exempt, which one is, all of these apply, but except this one. So be careful.